Apologies, Chairman, we're live now.
Okay, thank you. Right, good evening, members, and anyone visiting us on the YouTube stream this evening. The Development Committee, 25th of February 2021. Item 1 is apologies for absence. They've been received from Councillor Iano. And item 2, substitute members. We have Councillor Wilkinson, who's providing that substitute. Item 3, non-members attending. Welcome Councillor Ward and Councillor Hoy. Item 4, minutes of the meeting held on the 10th of December 2020. Are you happy for those to be authorised in due course? I will assume that that's okay unless I see a blue hand indicating. No indication. Thank you very much. Item 5, to receive declarations of interest. You just indicate if you've got anything you wish to declare. There are none. That's great. Thank you very much. And we move swiftly on to item 6, land to the north of London Road, West Rawworth Industrial Estate, Rayleigh. And Katie Rogers is going to present to us on this one, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm just going to share my screen. Hopefully you can see the plan on screen. Please indicate if you can't. This application seeks reserve matters approval in relation to a proposed bridge at the strategic residential development site known as Wolsey Park, which is to the west of Rayleigh. The wider site extends from Rawworth Lane to the north, indicated by my cursor here, down to London Road to the south. Outline planning permission was approved in 2015, and the parameter plan on screen is that approved relating to the outline planning consent. This envisaged a spine road, which is this grey, weaving through the site, which would run the length of the site and cross the Rawworth Brook in this position, approximately centrally in the screen, indicated by my cursor. So the plan on screen now shows 2 sections of the spine road that have been most recently approved. Other sections have already also received reserve matters consent. And these are the sections immediately north and south of the Rawworth Brook. These already benefit from reserve matters consent, and the proposal tonight is for the bridge which would link these 2 sections, indicated by my cursor here. So the red line application site relating to the current application is therefore limited to a small rectangle shown on screen. The brook is the line running from the top left to the bottom right of the screen. And the proposed bridge is denoted by the 2 parallel lines in the centre. So the plan on screen shows the proposed bridge and the landscaping around it. And this plan shows the bridge with a footway on the northern side, which would link to the footway that would run alongside the already fully approved section of bridge to the north and again to the south. And then on the south side of the bridge, you would have a section of footway and cycleway, so a slightly wider sort of pedestrian area, and that would also link to the other sections of approved road already. So this plan shows, just slightly zoomed in, to 2 of the sections that have been provided. So firstly, if we look on the left-hand side of the screen to section AA, this shows the highway, the road at a slight angle, and then the wider pedestrian cycleway to one side of the carriageway and the narrower pedestrian only to the other side. And you'll see the upright highway barriers that are proposed to either side, one slightly higher than the other. On the elevation plan then, in the middle of the screen, which is labelled BB, you'll see obviously in elevation the railing that's proposed along the stretch of the bridge. Elevation BB also shows in this dotted line, which is indicated by my cursor here, just slowly going down, the existing ground level and the profile of the river that the bridge will cross. The applicant has provided some visuals to help members. These would not be approved plans, but they are intended to help members sort of visualize what that elevation would look like in the context of the profile of the existing river bank and land around. So the first of these visuals is on screen and shows that the bridge proposed is a flat design of a low profile rather than a humped design, with the road over the bridge at the same level as the sections of road to the north and south. They're the sections that already benefit from reserve matters consent. And the section of carriageway and the pedestrian and cycleways either side would not be raised to any significant degree in relation to these other sections of the spine road. But just then flick through this, these visuals. So we've had a number of visuals provided, but let's just move that. So again, this is just viewed from the other angle. So the bridge would be a precast concrete structure, and part of it would be sort of follow the profile of the existing riverbank. This image does not have the highway railing shown, so that would be atop of that precast wall. And so that's from the other angle. These are the elevation, so 2 elevation images. They're pretty similar to the elevations, but without the engineering aspects of that on those. And then this one just shows some of the engineering detail that's provided on the elevation plan that is for approval, and it just shows the underground elements of the bridge, but it would be the bits of the bridge in image 1 that would project above the proposed ground level. So the proposed bridge design is functional and would complete the originally intended spine road that would run through the development site. The Highway Authority raised no objection, and neither did the Environment Agency, and the recommendation therefore is one of approval subject to the conditions in the committee report. Thank you.
Thank you. If you could just knock your screen off share, please. Thank you. Thank you. Members, to my mind, this is a reasonably straightforward application. I believe all of the details around this bridge are already consented. The bridge would have been part of a previous consent, but it was just held up for 1 or 2 technical engineering details. Councillor Stanley, do you just want to have a quick comment on this one before we move? Oh, Councillor Hawkway.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to ask, do we actually know what the height of the bridge is from the underside to the stream?
I would say that's a bit of a challenge. Depends how much water is in the stream.
No. At the moment, as it stands at the moment, where the bridge is going to go in, what is the height of the bridge to the height of the ditch or the stream or wherever it is? What I'm getting at is that if there isn't sufficient height, we could find the underneath the bridge could be dammed, and the water will collect and go over the top of the bridge.
We'll gather up all the questions, but on the plan that Miss Katie showed us, it did show the 1 in 100 year flood position. Councillor Hookway, you have a question.
I'm not talking about 1 in 100 year flooding and all that.
Councillor Stanley, if we could just move on.
No, you give me the wrong answer. You give me the wrong answer.
Councillor Hookway.
Yes, Chairman. Yeah, my question was related because it's a sort of a flat, low-level bridge. Is that there's no consideration that flooding is a major risk in relation to the bridge or adjacent area.
I did notice
that, Katie.
Yeah, yes, but in the description we've had already, the Environment Agency have clearly stated that they don't object to this. Katie, would you just like to answer those questions, please?
Yeah, okay, so maybe if I share my screen again, sorry. Okay, so let's go back to, so if we go back to the original outline planning consent, so at the outline stage, flooding in relation to all aspects of the proposed development was considered. So the bridge proposal already benefits from outline planning permission. So in principle, a crossing here is acceptable. But what the Environment Agency were keen to interrogate is the detailed design. And so that's obviously why there's been a delay in this application, this section of the Spine Road coming forward. It's why we've had other sections already granted reserve matters approval, and this is the last element because the detailed design is key. It bridges a main river, and the Environment Agency, you know, wanted to scrutinise that design, so they have done so. In the application submission, the applicant submitted a copy of the permit that they've applied for to the EA, and the EA are comfortable with the design, so they're satisfied that in flood risk terms, this bridge design to the dimensions, the heights above the riverbed and the flood, the modelled flood levels is appropriate here. So yeah, they're the specialist consultee, and they say that this design is fine in that regard. What I could always take you to Councillor Stanley's, sorry, this plan. So to Councillor Stanley's question, I can maybe just zoom into this section here a little bit more. So what you can see is this dashed line is the existing ground level, so the profile of the riverbed. And what I don't have, because I can't readily, using a PDF, I can't get a measurement from the base of the river to the top of the underside of the concrete structure of the bridge. But what it has got is this dimension of 90 centimetres here minimum. And that is the requirement that the EA were concerned about, and that's what this bridge design meets. So there's always going to be that clearance from this 1 in 100 flood level, and that specifically is what the EA required. And so they tell us that this design is safe in terms of flood risk.
Thank you. Right. Members, we have a recommendation for approval printed on 6.1 and 6.2. So can I first ask if there are any members? I'll just check out. Everyone has been able to hear the discussion. No one's had any technical issues. That's good. So if we move to the vote, then please, does any member wish to have a recorded vote? Please indicate with your hand if you do so. Okay. If you wouldn't mind dropping your hand, Councillor Stanley, so there won't be a recorded vote. Thank you. Can I ask those members in favour of the application to please indicate?
Apologies, Chairman, I can't seem to put my hand up now, saying I was able to before, but I will.
Okay, could I ask you which way you wish to indicate, Councillor Weston?
I'm in favour, Chairman.
Right, I have that as 12. If you'd like to drop your hands, please, members. Thank you. Those members against? See none, and abstain, please. It's just the one. That makes a total of 12 for, none against, 1 abstention. That item is carried. Thank you very much. Item 7, just give me a moment please to get that one up. Item 7, land between Windermere Avenue and Lower Road, Malian Lane, Holmbridge. Although the precise site we will have explained to us further by Mr. Stranks, who's presenting on this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. This application, as the Chairman said, although not involving development for 500 homes at the settlement extension of Holmbridge under the allocations that's currently in progress, in actual fact relates to the roundabout junction between Rorath Lane and Holmbridge Road, which we'll come to. If we could just jump to plan, Katie, just to give members a feel for the development that's currently in progress. Members will have seen the estate road coming in from the south of the site and the roundabout junction onto Lower Road. If we could now jump to 3 plan, please. The scheme that you saw there on the second plan required mitigation to the roundabout at the junction of Hambro Parade shown on the screen before you. And although it's hypothetical, it's worth explaining to members that all what was required to mitigate those 500 dwellings was junction improvements here shown in grey that actually just widen Rorath Lane to have 2 approach lanes from the west coming down Rorath Lane onto the roundabout, and 2 lanes on approach from the east from Hambro Hill, taking off that like wide pavement area and providing a new barrier just edged in the brown there. But that didn't happen, Chairman. That was necessary, but that didn't happen. If we can jump to Plan 4, please. During the course of dealing with the outline application, officers expressed to the applicants the long-held desire of the council to have a greater junction improvement because that route is affected by through traffic that uses the district to get to, say, Shoebury and areas of Southend, as well as other parts of the Rochford district. And the applicants were able to negotiate with the landowner the acquisition of land in the corner of a field that we'll see in a moment to provide a bigger roundabout. And that roundabout, which is over and above what is required to mitigate the development we were just looking at, and it is given planning permission, is delivered as part of a legal agreement to the planning consent, the outline planning consent that delivers the numbers of dwelling, and as well as a number of other infrastructure provision. Now, that legal agreement requires the roundabout to be completed at the 50th occupation of the dwelling, of the number of dwellings on the site. And your members will have seen that the construction of this roundabout has already commenced. I think the initial laying of or relaying of statutory undertakers began actually in September, but the more substantial works have started, I think, around about just before Christmas. And both sites, both the housing site and this roundabout, have proceeded. Now, during lockdown, there are various restrictions in operation. Certain teams and numbers of staff, particularly on the smaller roundabout site, can only work with certain distance parameters. So there are restrictions. Although construction has progressed, they have to do it in a reduced way. That's not so much the case for the housing site, although that did suffer, I believe, a shutdown in the earlier part of the pandemic. Because it's some 50 acres or so in size, a lot of the ground workers and other building staff and contractors, they can spread about more easily, so they can carry on progressing. And members will be aware that the central government have strongly recommended that the building industry be allowed to continue with the provision of needed homes and infrastructure, and also the benefits of that to the economy. Now, this has meant that the synchronisation of the 2 projects has got out of sync. That is not the fault necessarily of the applicant. That is the circumstances that were unforeseen at the time of signing the agreement back in 2017. And that's brought them back to the council to say, or to seek, if they could revise the agreement such that it would allow 200 dwellings on the housing site to be completed before the roundabout is required to be finished off and handed over to the county council. Now, that's not a a putting back necessarily of the project. It's anticipating some delays due to the working restrictions that they may have to operate, particularly if there is a future variant that causes further lockdowns and restrictions, as well as supplier factors that have affected it. But it also, members will recall that a year or two back, there was congestion when the applicants were putting their roundabout in that we've seen to serve the site. Other applicants on other sites were doing other infrastructure works, and there was a tremendous congestion situation. Now, if the 200 dwellings occupation was substituted in this particular development, it would mean that if there were clashes, the applicants could revise their programming to try and alleviate the congestion that might occur, and therefore allow this route to be open and to operate. It was initially expected that the roundabout would have been delivered last summer, but due to the pandemic and the construction, etc., that's been delayed. The government, as I said, have encouraged construction to continue, and the agreement trigger that was accepted, which was fairly much an industry standard of 50 dwellings, wasn't anticipated at the time these problems would occur back in 2017. To allow the roundabout to be required to the new trigger of 200 dwellings occupied, officers feel would give flexibility to the applicant to continue working under the current restrictions on both sites as encouraged by government, and would allow the applicant, as I said, to adapt their working practices should they encounter other difficulties. District officers consider that is entirely reasonable, and therefore the recommendation, Chairman, as you see in the report, is that the paragraph 433 to the agreement be revised to the occupation of 200 dwellings as set out in the officer report. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Mr. Houghton, who's going to speak to us on this one for a maximum of 5 minutes. Mr. Houghton, when you're ready.
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening, councillors. My name is Ray Houghton, and I'm the Head of Planning for Barratt David Wilson Eastern Counties. I'd like, if I may, to set out our reasoning behind the proposed trigger change. I know many of you would like some comfort on why the revised trigger is proposed. We're not looking to delay delivering the roundabout. In fact, as your officers advised, it is already under construction, having commenced in September with the diversion of utilities. Having committed to this obligation, I'd like to assure you that we will also want the completion of the roundabout as quickly as is safely practicable. You'll recall the construction of the Lower Road roundabout coincided with other significant highway works in the vicinity being carried out at the same time. This resulted in congestion, as many diversion routes were themselves subject to road improvement works. Residents and businesses rightly called for more coordination of subsequent works. As a result, the Watchford Developers Forum was organised by the District Council and chaired by the County Council Highways. It is the responsibility of the county to coordinate the issuing of road permits, road closure permits, and clearly this needed to be done with greater strategic direction. With the support of the county, we accelerated the delivery of the roundabout and in September. We still aim to complete the works and have the new roundabout operational by the end of June. Due to the pandemic and the lockdown, we in March had to cease construction on site, including the roundabout, until we were allowed to open again in June. Since then, we've operated under industry-leading strict social distance rules, which limits the number of people able to work in any one area. The roundabout is more constrained than the main housing site, where multiple groups of people are able to work simultaneously across its 54 acres. Also, we're able to build Barratt and David Wilson brands simultaneously, which we can deliver housing twice as quickly as would a single brand house builder. Therefore, the differential between the speed of delivery of the houses on a large site when compared to a restricted site within the live highway has increased over time. Furthermore, a recent extension of the successful Help to Buy scheme and next week's hopefully anticipated extension by the Chancellor of Stamp Duty initiative to the end of June has fueled demand for the houses. Unsurprisingly, in this context, our latest sales projection figures anticipate increased activity to the end of June, with 84 occupations, 7 more in July, and 8 proposed in August, which takes us up to 99 occupations by the end of August. I advise that the highway permit to work over the school holidays was given by Essex Highways to Countryside Properties for their works on London Road. Therefore, if we encounter delays towards the end of June, we'd have to cease works on the roundabout and restart in September, when of course we'd be over the 100 dwellings occupation. Just to confirm also, we anticipate reaching the 200th occupation by the end of next February, so within the year. I reiterate that we are committed to completing the roundabout as quickly and as safely as possible in accordance with the government's current social distancing requirements, which, as you know, are likely to remain in place until the 21st of June. The trigger proposed is a maximum, not a target, and is there to provide commercial certainty. If, for example, materials from the EU continue to be difficult to source, or should a future variant of COVID result in the introduction of social distancing, or heaven forbid, another lockdown. The professional advice for your officers is to approve the trigger. We submitted the application back in June 2020, and since the direct response to the pandemic, the government's housing initiative and local demand for our homes at Elms Park, we're now very close to that 50th occupation.
Just about a minute to go.
Thank you. I hope I've been able to explain the background to the proposed increase in the trigger. We hope that future occupiers would be able to continue to take advantage of the government's extended Help to Buy and stamp duty initiatives, which if we stop work in June, we'll no longer be able to provide that initiative to them. So the roundabout is being built and will be completed as soon as we safely can. I respectfully ask the committee that you approve the trigger as your officer recommends. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for that. And now I'm going to go on to the member debate. Councillor Hoy, this is in your ward, I believe. So as a visiting member, are you wishing to speak on this one?
Yes, thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yes, I'd like to thank Mr. Houghton for that summary. It did fade in and out a little bit, but I did grasp most of it. And there was some very good explanations there, which weren't within the report, which made it quite helpful. I have been uncomfortable about the 200th occupation because obviously the report states that it would normally be about 50 properties a year being built, which I would estimate therefore would be 200th would be the summer of 2024 rather than early next year as stated by Mr. Houghton. But I'm aware in conversations with Mr. Houghton, he did say that they could well be building at 100 a year. So there is some inconsistencies here in the reports. I did start this with a lot of reservations. My reservations are less now. And if I were happy to take a developer at their word, I don't think I would have a problem. But the 200th, as I say, it could be the summer of 2024, or it could be early next year or late this year, from what Mr. Houghton says. I'd just like to pick up a couple of points in the reports that's been presented about the roundabout at Roworth Lane, Holbridge Road Junction not really being necessary, which was the statement. I think all members would agree this is the first time ever in the history of our experience in planning that something is on the 106 agreement which is not necessary. We've always been told that everything on the 106 agreement is necessary and must have a connection to the site and be needed. It's quite clear in the report when this was originally passed in 2016, outline planning permission was given. It states there, I've gone back to the document, and it states that enhancements of the junction between Hamborough Hill, Holbridge Road and Roworth Lane. It says in the form of a roundabout, it says the proposed development would generate 228 two-way vehicle movements in the morning period and 261 two-way vehicle movements in the evening period. And it states in that report that provision of a new roundabout at the junction of Roworth Lane, Holbridge lane. It means Holbridge Road, obviously. It says the junction modelling has shown that traffic generated by the development will impact on the junction assessed, but with the proposed mitigation above in place, the impact will be reduced to provide for nil detriment or in some cases improvement. So the report, when we as a committee passed this, said the roundabout was required. So I would dispute that the report we have now is accurate. I mean, I don't know how we deal with contradictory reports, but I'm going by the first one because that's quite detailed. The issue I therefore have really is just on the why we have to wait for 200, and I'm a bit surprised that the officers have accepted 200 and haven't accepted something nearer 100, which would seem to be a better figure given the figures even which Mr. Houghton's given, if this is to be completed by the summer. I think we are quite impressed by the way the roundabout is going. It's moving quite well. I think if there were problems, I think that would be the time to come back to us for this. So I think I would be doubtful about approving this, but this is obviously up to the committee. That's all I've got to say at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hoy. Councillor Ward.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Well, as far as I can see, it's actually quite logical. I think the essence of the 200 is merely a safety net, and that's all. I think this is more a regulatory issue more than anything else. The simple fact is that this whole development has got out of sync with the actual roundabout. It is as simple as that. The fact is we do need houses. It has helped in regards to our housing delivery, and it's very, very important that that is maintained. If there comes a moment where there's a contravention in the 106 agreement, an enforcement notice will have to be delivered immediately, and that is a big problem, because what that means is that all work will stop. We will not be delivering housing until this is cleared up. Now, this is purely a regulatory issue. I am fully confident that this roundabout will be completed June, July. I do not think that David Wilson have any intention of reneging on their initial concept of getting this roundabout done as quickly as possible. We've seen what they've done. They started well ahead of time. They have worked really hard. The problem is simply COVID got in the way, just got in the way. And what we've ended up with is just being out of sync completely with the delivery of the housing, which has far accelerated the ability to keep up with the roundabout. And it is as simple as that. We also, I want members to bear in mind, we do have a large waiting list, not only within, our own housing numbers, but also outside of those numbers, there is a huge waiting list of our own residents needing properties. And this will contribute towards that waiting list.
Chairman, it's the housing waiting list, material planning consideration in relation to...
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Hoy. Councillor Ward is a visiting member. He's at liberty to almost say what he wants. It's the members. Well, I'll have this control.
Yeah. Well, as far as I'm concerned, I do not really appreciate Mr. Hoy's interruption. I didn't interrupt him in any way. I just carry on. Thank you, Chairman. I believe that this should be approved. It is merely a case, this is a regulatory...
Point of orders are allowed. The point of order was ruled out, and therefore I will not speak again. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Just finish off, please, Councillor Ward.
Thank you. Thank you. It is a regulatory issue that we are actually looking at. We are trying to amend a 106 agreement. It's a legal agreement. I have every confidence that this roundabout will be built out within the correct parameters. It's just a safety net, so we don't have to keep going backwards and forwards and keep on amending what we're trying to do now. And I think what has actually been done as far as the development has been excellent. I don't think I need to consider, talk any more on this. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you. I've got 4 members who've indicated to contribute to this discussion on this item. Can I just remind you, members, before we start, we're actually looking at a fairly narrow aspect of a planning application here. It is whether we change the delivery point from 50 to 200. So we're obviously quite well aware that there are lots of other aspects to do with the development, but this is a narrow point that we're discussing. So I would appreciate it if you could keep those the discussion focused. Councillor Wilson, please.
Thanks, Chairman. I'm confident that the roundabout will be built, and I'd like to thank Mr. Houghton for his comments, and it actually explains a lot of what's in the report. Normally, and I sort of agree with what Councillor Ward said, is that what's happened here is a force majeure, both for the building and for the roundabout. And I wonder about, and I would like legal advice really, perhaps Mr. Irwin might be able to provide this. But with the section 106, we've tied this to the building of houses. But is it possible just to say that, but is it possible to say that the developer will make best endeavours to complete the roundabout as soon as possible, rather than tie it strictly to the number of houses that are built? Thank you, Chairman.
I'll take all the comments and then we'll sum up all the various questions in one hit. Councillor Hookway, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I don't know if Mr. Houghton or Mr. Stranks could let us know as to whether there are any financial penalties in not meeting the current requirement as it stands within the legal agreement, and whether a lowering of the figure would be an option for the committee as to whether it thought it might be better to go for a lower figure. Thank you.
Mr. Houghton unfortunately won't be able to contribute any further from this point, but we'll get an answer there. Councillor Stanley, please.
Thank you, Chairman. On the basis of this agreement that we've already got of 50 homes, and then the roundabout should be completed. I do think that, I mean, they're making wonderful progress on it. I'm only too happy to see the movement that is going on. It is going well. I can assure the builders that the guys are doing a grand job. But nevertheless, I'd like to make a proposal that the proposal is for a minimum of 150 homes before this can be put into the 106 agreement. I think 150 homes is in between. I think hopefully that the developer says he'll have the roundabout finished by June, July time. They're getting on really fast with it, so it shouldn't be too far away. And I think to give them a little bit of leeway would be a good idea of 150 homes. That's my proposal, please.
Councillor Stanley, I will sort of interject there. I believe that the application that we have is clear in 200, and your suggestion is a substantive change to the application, and I feel that that wouldn't be appropriate. I will just get this question cleared up at this point. We obviously not at a point to discuss this with the applicant. So, Mr. Stranks, can you comment on that one specifically?
Just briefly, if subject to the advice you get, if the advice is that it's appropriate, then I'll be prepared to second.
Let's get the advice first, please.
Very quickly, Chairman, thank you. It would be appropriate. The whole background to this application is to build in some sort of resilience to the unexpected. So whilst thought has been given to the provision of 200 units, the applicant, to address an earlier question raised, they need a specific time to operate. So whilst we could talk about best endeavours, and perhaps I'll leave that to Mr. Irwin, it's more useful to have a when have we got to do it? When's the time scale? And if they've got an occupation of the number of dwellings, you can see that, you can prove that. Yeah. So this application is framed on the basis of expecting 200, and you heard from Mr. Houghton, I think he said, well, they might hit that target in the new year. But if members are uncomfortable with that and are looking at a lesser figure of 150, given that compromise, I don't see that's inappropriate at all. The whole idea of this proposal is to build in the resilience, as I said, and the flexibility they might need, looking ahead at the difficulties they can't foresee but may well encounter.
Thank you. Councillor Stanley, we can move forward with the proposal that you have made to amend the motion to 150 rather than 200. Do you have a seconder for that? Councillor Hookway, you'd indicated.
Yes, Chairman, I'd like to second that.
Thank you. Members, we're now going to move continuing with the discussion, but we are specifically now talking about the amended motion of a change from 50 to 150. Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you, Chair. I'm glad that my colleague said that before me, because I was going to suggest the same. I, like the other councillors, have complete faith in the developer, and I've seen the works going on. It's going really well. If I understood correctly, you anticipate the roundabout to be finished by July at some point, and I think the figure 89 occupancies was mentioned late summer. So if all things being equal, you should have the roundabout finished with about 70 odd occupations. So I was feeling a bit uncomfortable with the 200 as well. So I'm glad that Councillor Stanley brought forward a lower figure, and that's not to be inappropriately put inappropriate pressure on the developer at all. I just feel a little bit more comfortable with it personally, and I will support this amended motion, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Weston.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I've been listening to all. I think the reducing it to 150. My only concern is I'm not sure how much difference it would make. I just wanted to be reiterated of the time frame of the roundabout, because I didn't want to come back again and the time frame would change. Can we have a definite time frame that the roundabout will be completed? I know you're talking about July, but is this going to be a definite time frame, or are we looking at longer if something else happens? That's my only question. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor FD.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm understanding from what was said before that this has a lot to do with licences from Essex County Council and be able to do construction on roundabouts. And if I can understand, he said these licenses might run out in June time, where they'd have to stop construction on the roundabout but still build the houses. So I think this is probably why he's put 200 houses on there. And me not being a developer, I'm surely he knows what, if things go wrong, he's got to give himself a margin of 200 houses. So I can't support 150. I'm much more comfortable with the 200. Thank you.
Yeah. Councillor Williams.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I would be happy to support the 200. I would also be happy to support the 150, but I would much rather give the developers a bit more leeway and make it 200 personally, but I will support either that most of the other councillors will support.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Stranks, if you could just do your best to answer the question on time frame, and there was an earlier question with regard to finance penalties. I think you'd already made a comment on best endeavours.
Thanks, Chairman. I'm not aware, Mr. Irwin may have the advantage of me, but I'm not aware of any formal financial penalties. Where the penalties would be is in the supply of housing on the other site. They'd have to stop building whilst they finish the roundabout.
Agree with that.
No.
the time frame, Chairman, I'm not aware of a strict time frame in terms of the planning permission. That's left to our colleagues in the County Highway Authority and the developers. But I believe I was right in hearing that Mr. Houghton say that they anticipate, if all things stay equal and there's no more interference with circumstances beyond their control, they would be looking to finish June, July time, which I think members are clear on. The whole purpose of this exercise, this issue brought before you, is that the developer can't see ahead with clarity, that they don't suddenly find that we're in, contrary to everything, another lockdown, or there may be some issues, as Mr. Houghton said, with the supply of materials and so forth, that means that they can't complete the site, complete the roundabout, without it interfering with the progress of the housing on the site. And in terms of the point I think was made about licenses, there are other developments going on, and what could happen is that lots of roadworks would all be clashing. Now, these developers, I think, are acting with some responsibility to feel that if they had the slack to be able to spot a congestion occurring, they could pull off the works on their roundabout to improve traffic flow for the wider area. Whereas if they're forced to operate to 50 lanes, then like all the others, they're going to bang on and get that site completed, and there would be the congestion experience. So the greater the number, the greater the flexibility that's given to the operators. But if they have no more constraints, they're hoping that it would all be completed in June, July this year. But they're hesitant because, you know, how can you see ahead with any guarantees? There is hope, but what if there are other variants that come through and say that the vaccine may not deal with appropriately? We go into a lockdown situation. They're trying to manage that by finding that they could continue to work under restrictions unless they're forced to close. They could continue to work on the housing site, and the government would generally say these flexibilities would still pump the economy, keep people in work, keep housing being provided. So that the greater the number, the greater flexibility you give the applicant to plan, if that's helpful, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Owen, can you just confirm if there would be financial penalties or not?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I would agree with Mr. Stranks on that point, that there wouldn't be financial penalties. It would be the Section 106 would be enforced in a different way.
Okay, thank you. Members, there's a recommendation for approval printed on 7.1 in 4 points, but with the specific amendment put forward by Councillor Stanley and seconded by Councillor Hookway to change the number of 200 to 150. Before we go to any voting, can I just ensure that all members have been properly able to hear and follow the discussion? Right. Thank you very much. Can I ask if there to indicate with the raised hand if any members wish to have a recorded vote? Just see the one, so there won't be a recorded vote on that. If you could just drop the hand, Councillor Stanley, please. Thank you. Can I ask those members in favour of the amended motion for approval, principal feature being 150, to indicate with the raised hand?
1, 2, 3.
Final count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Thank you. Take that as 8. Those against? So drop your hands first, please. Oops. Drop the hands. Let's clear the table. Thank you. Those members against, please indicate. Oh. That's 5.
Excuse me, Chairman.
Hold on a sec. If you just drop your hands there, please.
May I speak, Chairman?
Not at the moment.
We seem to have a double. We seem to have a double amount. I think Councillor Williams voted for and then voted against.
No.
No, I didn't. Thank you very much,
The officers will advise that this is happening properly. Just drop your hand, please, Councillor Butcher. Thank you. Is there any members wishing to Councillor Butcher? Are there any members wishing to abstain? Thank you. That's 8-5. That motion is approved. Right then, that there are no items referred from the weekly list. So at 8:23, I think I can say thank you very much for your attendance and contributions, and I'll close the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.